Okay, today we're going to talk about something that's, well, it's pretty much invisible, but it's almost certainly in your home, probably in your food, and yeah, even inside your body right now. This is the story of a chemical revolution that came with a hidden cost, a cost that's turning out to be permanent.
So, let me just ask you a question, straight up. When you turn on the faucet to get a glass of water, you assume it's clean, right? Of course you do. But what if I told you that in this case, looks can be incredibly deceiving?
And hey, those aren't my words. That's a direct quote, and it's really the hook for this whole thing. It's such a simple statement, but honestly, it's kind of terrifying. So, what is this chemical they're talking about? All right, let's pull back the curtain on this invisible substance. It's time to give this hidden threat a name so we can figure out what in the world we're actually dealing with. So, this threat has a proper scientific name. And yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. We're just going to call them PFAS, okay? Much easier. And the crazy thing is, these chemicals weren't designed to be bad guys. Not at all. They were actually hailed as these engineering marvels, created to make our lives way easier by repelling water, resisting heat, and fighting off grease.
But, and there's always a but, isn't there? That incredible helpfulness came with a side effect, a really unique, and as it turns out, deeply problematic quality. It's a quality that earned them a nickname that's, well, it's a lot easier to remember and frankly, a lot more chilling. People started calling them forever chemicals. And that single word right there, forever, that's the key. That's the heart of this entire crisis. So what does that even mean, forever? How is that possible? Well, it all comes down to some surprisingly simple chemistry. PFAS molecules are built around something called a carbon-fluorine bond. Now, for those of you who aren't chemists, just think of this bond as the strongest superglue on the planet. It is one of the tightest, most stubborn bonds that exists. And because of that, nature, it just doesn't really have the tools to break it down. So what's the result? They just don't degrade, ever. Not in a year, not in 100 years, they just stick around.
Okay, so if these things are man-made, you got to be asking, how did they get, well, literally everywhere? Let's trace the path of how this wonder product became a worldwide contaminant. Well, for decades, PFAS were basically the secret sauce in so many products we used every single day. You know that nonstick pan you cook your eggs in? Yup. That waterproof jacket you love? That too. Even the wrapper on your burger. On top of that, they were a key ingredient in these heavy-duty firefighting foams, the kind used at airports and on military bases. I mean, they were truly everywhere.
And this really breaks down how that happened. It all starts at the factory, or the place of use. From there, these chemicals get out into the environment, maybe through discharge from a plant, or seeping out of a landfill, or from runoff after a firefighting drill. Then they get into our water sources, right? Our rivers, our groundwater. But here's the kicker, and this is so important. Our standard water treatment plants, they were never built to filter this stuff out, so the chemicals just sail right on through the system and come straight out of our taps.
The scale of this contamination it's just mind-boggling. This isn't just a problem for one town or one city. Scientists have found these chemicals in rainwater in Tibet, in the Arctic, some of the most remote places on Earth. It's gotten so widespread that some scientists have reached this really stark conclusion. There's probably no place left on the entire planet that's truly free of PFAS.
So them sticking around in the environment forever is obviously a huge problem. But the story gets even more personal. What happens when these forever chemicals get inside our bodies? Why is forever such a dangerous word when it comes to our health?
There's a key idea here, and it's called bioaccumulation. It sounds complicated, but the concept is simple. Imagine your body is like a bathtub, but the drain is almost completely clogged. Every time you drink some contaminated water or eat food with PFAS in it, a little bit more goes into the tub. And since your body can't really break it down or drain it out, it just stays there. It builds up day after day, year after year. And that's the thing that makes this so different. This isn't like a classic poison where you drink it and get sick right away. No, the real threat here is the slow, steady, invisible exposure over your entire life. It's that gradual buildup in your system that's the problem. And what does that buildup lead to? Well, a growing body of research has linked this long-term accumulation to some really serious health problems. We're talking about higher risks for certain kinds of cancer, damage to your liver, messing with your hormones. It's even been shown to weaken your immune system's response.
Okay, so at this point, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, if this stuff is so widespread and so dangerous, how come we don't notice it? Why isn't everyone panicking? And that's a perfectly logical question.
And the answer gets to the heart of what makes this whole crisis so insidious. It's because PFAS are completely undetectable by us. They're colorless, they're tasteless, they're odorless. The water coming from a contaminated tap looks and tastes exactly the same as perfectly clean water. It really is the perfect invisible threat. Which, of course, brings us to the big question, the most important one of all. If these things are going to be around forever, can we at least get them out of our water? I mean, can this whole mess be fixed?
Well, this is where it gets really, really challenging. Just take a look here. Your standard water treatment, the stuff every city has, totally ineffective. It does nothing. You can upgrade to something like activated carbon, and that helps a little, but it's limited. To really get this stuff out, you need fancy, high-tech solutions like reverse osmosis or special membrane filters. And now look at that last column, cost and availability. These methods are super expensive and just not something you find in a typical public water system.
So the bottom line is pretty clear. Is it technically possible to remove PFAS from water? Yes, but the cost and the sheer logistical nightmare of trying to upgrade every city's water system in the country, it's just massive. There is no easy button for this. Which really brings us back to this one line that I think sums up the whole story perfectly. PFAS are invisible, indestructible chemicals that quietly slipped into our water and into our lives long before anyone realized what the true cost would be. So I want to leave you with this final thought. For decades, this has been an invisible crisis, hiding in plain sight, in our water and in our bodies. The question we have to ask now is, what happens when we finally start to see the cost? When it's no longer invisible, what does that future look like?